Hey, Karen. I don't know if you remember the puppy from the last video, but there's Holly, and the puppy's gotten bigger, so I wanted to share the puppy. Um, and hi, Tracy, too. So I want to talk about Common Core standards, the history of Common Core standards. Are you ready for this, Holly?
Yes.
And also how they're organized. And so I have daughter Holly here, who can kind of reflect back on her experience in high school, and we can kind of make some connections here, I think. Karen, thank you so much for doing that PowerPoint. That helped me understand it a lot better. I'm not currently like in the classroom working with these. I was a high school English teacher, and I know I would kind of be all over this stuff if I were still in the classroom. I am learning, but this class has really helped me to know what they're about and how they're organized in much more depth than I've been gathering from the teachers that I work with. Um, so first, just a little tidbit of history, Holly.
Okay.
So a long time ago, when I was teaching at Tulare Union way back, we really didn't have like standards to go by. See, when I taught English, we had, it was more like curriculum and stories and themes that we would go off of. But what we were finding, what the United States was finding, they did this big study called oh doggone it, Karen, I can't remember, 1983. This big study that showed that the United States is behind in with the rest of the world in education.
Okay.
It'll come to me. So from that, it's like, okay, we got to do something. So we thought we need to have standards, and the determination was that the state would figure out, like California is going to figure out its own standards. So
Why
we started.
States? Why not all the same?
It's a good question.
Sorry.
It has to do with kind of how the government's organized, and the states get to have control over that. And then it kind of goes down to the communities and the cities and the districts and all that. So what I remember is now we have some standards to look at, like, and I'll use something like really simple, a 5-paragraph essay. Like, okay, sophomores in high school need to know how to do a 5-paragraph essay. So we know that all the sophomores are going to learn that. So what was kind of cool is we started having standards when I was teaching, and we started working on them together with the other teachers. So it was kind of cool. So now this has expanded over time, gotten kind of bigger and better, and we've shifted to multiple choice questions. Remember, we had that one big about I choose C and all of that.
Yes.
But what I really like with these Common Core standards, kind of like you're saying, Holly, it's like a federal thing. It's like all the United States, that's why it's Common Core. Everybody's the same. So
Gotcha.
learning in Oklahoma is the same that what we're learning in California.
Okay.
One of the quotes, so Karen, my professor, who she did a little video for us, and one thing that she mentioned is that 19% of our population can't read. I mean, that's a lot.
That's a big percent.
That's a lot. That means they can't, pick up a menu. They can't read the newspaper. They can't figure out how to do a job application. That's bad. So what Common Core has put together is kind of a way to ensure that all the students, that everyone learns from K all the way through 12, and that they're all going to come away with like a certain level of understanding, a certain level of skill.
Okay.
One thing that I thought was really cool out of the stuff that I was looking through English. So there's Common Core for English language arts and Common Core for math. Now this is what I thought was really cool, Karen, is that English language arts is not just for English class. Reading, writing, speaking, and listening are these anchor standards, and really science should be teaching students how to read, write about science, right?
Okay.
History should be teaching it. Math a little bit, but math kind of has their own. English, of course, all of the other electives should be teaching reading, writing, listening, speaking, and language too, and punctuation and sentence structures and all that. Because like writing a paper in science is a little bit different than writing a paper in English. You've got informational and you've got literature.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of interesting. It says Karen and Holly. My department head, back when I was first teaching, when standards started coming about, his theory was, and I thought this was really cool, this was way back in 1992, he felt like there shouldn't be, in high school, there shouldn't be English class. There should be the study of literature, but all classes should be teaching how to read, write, speak, and listen in kind of whatever their content is. Mm-hmm. And then we English teachers would get to teach literature and use that as our content to teach all those skills. One thing that I thought was interesting is that we need to immerse students in literacy, and literacy means reading, writing, listening, speaking. And so immerse means they need to be doing it all day long. Like they just can't do it in English class and then go off and not do it anymore. Math I looked at some, and math is just really foreign to me. But trying to understand how the math works, I really liked there was a little piece about habits of mind. And that's kind of like a hip term right now. But so in math, you're learning how to do problems, but the ability for your brain to do problems is what's important. The math, to take, like if you're doing a geometry problem or you're like trying to take sticks and build a TP and you have to measure it, or you're doing carpet and trying to measure it, that's helping your brain know how to do that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. And
you're using math formulas to do that. So I thought that was really cool. Critical thinking. Love the anchor standards. Then there was a little bit about science. Okay, so what's up with science? And I won't go too much into that, but science is shifting their standards, and the big deal there is, like, it used to be, like, remember when you did, when you had to do the solar system, and you had the Earth and the sun and the Earth and the planets going around it. So imagine if they're changing content, and I'm not sure really what that's all about, but imagine if the science teacher knows that that's what they're going to teach, and now like they're not going to teach that anymore, they're going to teach something else. So science has been really controversial, but what is cool about the science standards is part of the standards talk about using reading, writing, and formulas like in chemistry. So the reading, writing, and math is embedded in that. Okay, so here's what is really cool. So I'm kind of using my side computer here because I want to show her that. I really loved the spirals, Karen. The let's see if I can find where I put them. Those little appendices. There it is. It's down. It's right here. No, it's in there. There it is. Where it shows the growth. There it is. Okay, so this is what I'm showing her. Is one of those cool spirals. So this is the reading standards. So the standards are vertically aligned, and this is different than what I remember about standards. To be honest, when I remember standards, they seem kind of random. To be honest, I felt like in English, we just kind of kept swirling around. We kept writing stuff, and you wrote stuff in freshman year and sophomore year, and it didn't really build. So this particular standard is that the student will analyze how two or more texts address a theme, right? So at 11th and 12th grade level, you can see that how deep this is. They can demonstrate knowledge of all these different pieces of literature, 18th, 19th, 20th century literature, including how two or more texts of the same time period have similar themes. So that's pretty deep.
Yeah, that's more than just like making the essay longer.
It's more than making the essay longer, exactly.
That's just what I just got more pages, like page numbers just got to be more.
And then if you look at 6th grade, it says compare and contrast two texts in different forms. So like maybe a story and a news article. Okay. So, and then I love what I love about this. I love how it goes down to kindergarten. So then in kindergarten, with prompting and support, compare and contrast the adventures and experiences of characters in a familiar story. So you might talk about Goldilocks versus Little Red Riding Hood, and they could talk about that.
Aww.
So I just am understanding it more than ever and these spiral demonstrations are just really cool. So that's really helped me to understand. So vertically aligned, so we know from kindergarten to 12th what that's going to look like. And then they also say that they are horizontally aligned, so that like in, let's say, second grade, for example, let's use like 8th grade. In 8th grade, 8th grade is analyze how a work of fiction draws on different themes. So in 8th grade, they would be working on analyzing that in history class and analyzing that in science class. So it would, so it's horizontal too. Okay. So it's horizontal and it's vertical. Gotcha. Then the other little piece I wanted to talk about when we talk about how things have changed and kind of how the history and where we are now. No, that's not it. Oh, where'd it go? That's it. No, that's not it. It's this one. We looked at that one. Talked about the rigorous, the text complexity. Oh, there it is. The text complexity. This really blew me away, Karen, having been an English teacher, and I was looking at on the appendix that you showed us. This is supposed to be 6th through 8th grade text, okay? And this is from the narrative life of Frederick Douglass, who was a slave, and I don't know if you remember about him, but I look at this, and you made the comment in your little video, Karen, about how when you were teaching, we gave too much support. We didn't have expectations of the students being able to do this by themselves. We were always helping. So when I look at this text, and so let's see. So he's talking about some white boys that he's seen. And one of his little phrases says, "I am strongly tempted to give the names of 2 or 3 of those little boys as a testimonial of the gratitude and affection I bear them. But prudence forbids." Oh my gosh. My high school kids even would be like, "Prudence, what? What?" I mean, this is some dense language.
For 6th to 8th grade.
Yeah, don't you think it seems like hard? Yeah. So I think what this shows to me is that we have gotten a lot more rigorous. Our expectations are higher. This is what they're reading in 6th through 8th grade, so that they're ready to read War and Peace in 11th and 12th grade, because they're not all going to get to War and Peace if they can't get here in 6th to 8th grade. So text complexity. That's the other piece is the system and how this is all very systematic, and there's kind of a lot to it, actually, as I kind of go through each piece. But if you look at each standard kind of isolated, you can see the growth. And I think it's really an exciting time. And I know our district is starting to embrace it and get away from pacing guides and not the curriculum, but the textbook, and focusing more on the standards. It's going to take some time. Still trying to kind of fuss with those pacing guides, but and get away from the themes and the content and focus more on the standards and the skills. Thanks, Holly.
You're welcome, Mom.
Bye.